Okay. Are we ready to go? Okay, well, I'm just going to say one more time, welcome everyone, and welcome into our commemoration of Holocaust Memorial Day 2021. We were meant to start at 2 o'clock, but we've had a few technical difficulties. So here we are now. And so I do welcome you all, and just we appreciate that you're there, especially if you're trying again. It's been obviously a bit of a challenge, with our technology, which we've now been sorting. So hopefully this will now just completely go smoothly. Every year that on this occasion that I've had the blessing to be able to say a few words, I've often found myself saying that this is more important than ever. And I realized that, well, it can't actually increase in importance. So what I would like to say this year is that this will always be important. This day will always be important. It will always be important to also remember that it is very imperceptible beginnings that are potentially creating an avalanche of hate that is capable of producing incredible violent and destructive havoc in our shared humanity. I'm going to borrow a couple of lines from a letter that the Archbishop of Canterbury and York wrote recently in response to the 100,000 COVID deaths here in the UK, because it does relate to our sense of liking to name numbers, especially when it comes to genocide. And these two lines were simply, it isn't just an abstract figure. Each number is a person, someone we loved and someone who loved us. So hopefully we can all remember that. And with that thought, I will hand you over to René Pfertzel and his opening words to us. Thank you, René.
Welcome to you all for this Holocaust Memorial Day 2021. We are invited to reflect on Be the Light in the Darkness. I was wondering what more can be said about genocides, crimes against humanity, and other atrocities human beings can inflict upon others. Indeed, we meet every year on Holocaust Memorial Day, which marks the entry of the Soviet troops into the camp of Auschwitz. The Jewish community gathers every year on Yom HaShoah, which falls on the 27th of the month of Sivan, usually in April and May. And it marks the uprising of the Warsaw Ghetto. However, regardless of who the victims are, regardless of who the perpetrators are, it is always the same. A group of human beings in position of power tries to destroy another group of human beings in position of weakness on the basis of their ethnicity, religion, nationality, race, gender, etc. Sadly, there are all too many examples of that. And each year at Holocaust Memorial Day, we try to remember one of these groups. This year, we remember the Cambodian genocide, and we have a guest speaker who will talk to us about his own experience. Less than 50 years ago. It is not a thing of the past, and the events unfolding in Western China against the Uyghur community are the latest example of genocide. It is not officially recorded as such yet, because China is such a superpower that it tries everything to hold that. But in reality, we are witnessing an attempt against a minority in a powerful country. A couple of years ago, I visited Cambodia, where my eldest daughter was living at that time. On the first day, I went to visit the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum, which is located at the center of Phnom Penh, the capital, in a secondary school located in the center and converted into a concentration camp, which was called S21. The city was completely emptied of its inhabitants. So I won't say much because we have someone who sadly witnessed the facts firsthand. More than displaying gruesome details about the killing techniques, the many ways we taught to torture human beings, the curator of the museum decided to show pictures, faces of men, children, and women who suffered there. And indeed, the face of genocide is not a gas chamber, it's not a killing field. The face of genocide are the many faces of those who were killed. They are not statistics, as Annette reminded us a few moments ago. They are human beings whose life was short-cut.
I'm not sure if I'm deliberately coming on now, but I will come on. And I will just say thank you to Rabbi René. And it is a privilege to introduce Mayor Margaret Thompson, who is the Mayor of Kingston. Today, I know she will be reflecting on those who have lit the flame, brought light in the face of the terrible inhumanity and evil of genocide. Here in Kingston, I'm very aware that she represents the council, which has been finding ways to reach out and to care for all people, and especially for the most vulnerable in the light of the pandemic. And I think that all of the ways in which we care for one another as individuals, treat one another as humans, is a way in which we light a candle of hope. So I will hand over to Mayor Margaret Thompson.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mandy, for your very kind words. And indeed, the amount of work that so many people in Kingston are undertaking on behalf of our more vulnerable, sick and unwell residents is really overwhelming. And we do recognise that. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me to be present at this poignant ceremony, which is made even more so by the need to undertake it remotely. Holocaust Memorial Day takes place every year on January the 27th and remembers and commemorates all those people who lost their lives because of the Holocaust and later genocides, such as those in Cambodia, Rwanda, Darfur and Bosnia, because their ethnicity, culture, religious faith or sexuality did not agree with the warped ideals of a more powerful majority. Those ideas have never prevailed. Today, too, we remember the plight of the Uyghurs in China. The theme of this year's commemoration is light, and the act of lighting a candle is a strong and enduring symbol of hope for a future in which we have learned the lessons of the past. We and all those who will come after us can learn those lessons and take that symbol of hope and joy into the future. Light is central to the practice of many faiths, Jewish Hanukkah, Christian Christmas, both secular and religious, Muslim Eid, as the light of reason for humanists, and for Hindus at the Nine Nights Festival, and for many others. As Holocaust Memorial Day brings together the civic, political, community and faith leaders of our country, so does this enduring symbol of light. As Rabbi Sachs said, even though your faith is not my faith and mine is not yours, if we are each free to light our own candle, then together we can banish some of the darkness of the world. That darkness is the hatred of another because of their difference, expressed in many ways and particularly now on social media. The hatred develops into organised hate and violence, but the light of reason, acceptance and love for all shows us that the dark has not overcome the light. That is the responsibility of all of us. It begins with us, in our families and our communities, in our schools and institutions, in our synagogues, temples and churches, and in other places of worship. The purpose of this light is to illuminate, to show truth, justice and honour, love and acceptance, tolerance and humanity and compassion. This flame is composed of infinitesimally small particles called photons. As a photon has the capacity to travel onwards into infinity forever, so does our capacity for spreading the light. Of course, a candle flame is fragile and can easily be extinguished, but light is greater than darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Many flames coming together develop into a powerful force of light. If a single candle were to be lit for every victim of hate and oppression, all of those flames coming together would be visible from space and would continue streaming into infinity forever as a witness to the power of the light of truth. We can all be a part of that great light of justice by our words and our actions. To get today, as we remember all those who have died in genocide and Holocaust, we also reflect on the illuminating power of that light. I will now light the memorial candle as a sign of our unity against the horrors of war I will now light the memorial candle as a sign of our unity against the horrors of war and oppression and as a symbol of the light of truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are now going to have brief reflections by three of our Kingston Interfaith Forum members, Rabbi Mandelbaum, Jeremy Rodell, and Sarah Mehdi. Sarah Mehdi unfortunately has family commitments and can't be with us in person, so we will have her on a pre-recorded message. And I'm now going to hand you over to these three, starting.
Oh, I'm on. Yes. Hello. We are the rabbinic couple. It's my wife Shulamis. I'm Yecheskel. We are the rabbinic couple of Kingston Surbiton, the Orthodox Synagogue. And we always do things together with the liberal synagogue. And we are happy for that. And also together with Kingston Interfaith Forum, it's lovely to work together and to always remember that whatever one's religion is, this is a cause for humanity. And I'm going to sing to you a prayer that is very, very dear to us. It's the Kaddish. And the Kaddish is a prayer we usually perform in a synagogue together with 10 men. And but it is also, it's a prayer of how to say it, praising God beyond any religion. You might even discover in its words some parts which later became the Lord's Prayer. It starts with saying, magnified and sanctified may his great name be. In the world he created by his will. God created a world, and he wanted this world and us to be kind to each other, a world of love, a world of understanding, and he handed it over to us. And unfortunately, not always we did a good job in it. But we should remember that we have this responsibility towards the world to make it a place for everybody. So let me perform for you the Kaddish. Yes, Gadol, yes, Gadol, Shemay Rabo, V'hol Amadi Barachir Asay, Amlech Malach Asay, V'chayachayin V'mechayin V'chayin Direchol Beis Yisrael Globes Manakore, Veimaru Amen. Yeshmei Rabo, Mamonach Le'olam, Ule'olam Hayom. Yisborach, V'yishtabach, Yisbar v'yisraman, v'yisnaseh, v'yisadar, v'yisaleh, v'yisalal shomed kudsho baricho. Min kol berchoso v'shiroso, tosh b'chaso v'nachamo v'voso. Yamiran b'ol b'v'imaron. Yesh l'moram min shamayam v'chayim aleinu. Mehalakol Israel V'imaro Amen. Ose sholem imroma Voyase sholem oleinu Ve'al kol Israel Ve'imro Amen. Yase sholem Sholem oleinu Ve'al kol Israel Yase sholem Sholem oleinu Al kol bo'ei olam.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Afternoon. So I'm Jeremy Rodell. I'm the Humanist rep on the Interfaith Forum. And what I'm going to do is read a very famous short piece by Martin Niemöller, and what it's about essentially is courage and shared humanity. First, they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. And when I hear that, I always think perhaps we ought to take care to ask ourselves, who is it that I am not speaking out for? Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy. And now we'll have a clip of the speaker.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mehdi. I apologise for not being able to join you live this afternoon, but thank you for having me with you. The theme of light from darkness is mentioned in the Holy Quran numerous times. One of these verses is in chapter 2, verse 257, where Allah the Almighty says, Allah is the guardian of the believers. He brings them out of darkness and into light. So this theme of bringing into light from darkness is very much apparent in the Holy Quran. And it is a theme which is very close to my heart. Because in a world where we all so often seem to be surrounded by darkness, where everywhere we look we seem to see injustice, hatred. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mehdi. I apologise for not being able to join you live this afternoon, but thank you for having me with you. The theme of light from darkness is mentioned in the Holy Quran numerous times. One of these verses is in chapter 2, verse 257, where Allah the Almighty says, Allah is the guardian of the believers. He brings them out of darkness and into light. So this theme of bringing into light from darkness is very much apparent in the Holy Quran, and it is a theme which is very close to my heart, because in a world where we all so often seem to be surrounded by darkness, where everywhere we look we seem to see injustice, hatred, poverty, cruelty, violence, intolerance, oppression, I pray that we can together, by even just very small acts of unity, of understanding and of dialogue, bring light from the darkness around us. I pray that love and peace can prevail over hate and violence, and that light will prevail over darkness. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Rodell, and I'm the music director at Kingston Liberal Synagogue. It is my pleasure to introduce our choir once again at this special annual event of Holocaust Memorial Day. Thank you for inviting us. The theme this year, Be the Light in the Darkness, is a powerful call to each and every one of us to act for the good of humanity. We have chosen 2 Jewish songs that both call for light. The first is from Israel in 2002, Nadlik Bayachad Ner. Let's light a candle together. This is a call that recognises the strength of collective commitment and action. Our second song is taken from a much older source, the Psalms, a prayer that calls to the Holy One, Shalach Orcha, send out your light. We hope you enjoy them. Light a candle, light a candle with me. 1,000 candles in the dark will open hearts.
Time. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, it's my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Sokpal Din. Like Rabbi René, I've also visited Cambodia and Phnom Penh and the killing fields, and will never forget the impact that it has. Sokpal is a survivor of that genocide in Cambodia between 1975 and 79, in which between 1 and 3 million people were murdered by the Khmer Rouge. There's only time now for a short talk, but we recommend Sokpal's new book, which came out a few months ago, called The Killing Fields of Cambodia, Surviving a Living Hell. And it took him 10 years to write that book. So now, Sokpal, I'd like to pass over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Just want to check, can you everyone hear me? Yeah? Can you hear me? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am Sokpal Din, one of the survivors from the genocide killing fields in Cambodia. It is such a great honor that I was invited to talk about my horrible life experience in the genocide. It was 4 years from 1975 to 1979, where myself, my family members, and the rest of innocent civilian Cambodians were trapped. It was like a living hell, or in the prison without wall. It was the darkest time, not knowing, seeing, and hearing from any, totally living in the dark world. We were frightened, sad, scared, and of being executed because of the extreme communist regime. We were lied from day one. They called it year zero. Our life, future, and freedom were taken away, destroyed by a bunch of Khmer communist leaders who had murdered millions of Khmer people, men, women, and children. Those people who lost their lives weren't fortunate enough to see the light of freedom or share their experience to the world. I am very fortunate that I am still alive and here today to speak out about the atrocity, the Cambodian killing fields. The theme for the Holocaust Memorial Day 2021 is Be the Light in the Darkness. The trouble had started when the Cambodian people had a revolution and changed from Kingdom of Cambodia to Khmer Republic. On 18th of March 1970, from then on, the trouble started. The Khmer Republic went to war with Viet Cong and Khmer rebels, communist guerrillas. The Khmer Republic was supported by America. The Viet Cong and Khmer rebels were supported by the Chinese Communist Mao Zedong. The war had caused too much pain to Khmer people. There were many refugees who escaped from remote villages into the city. We were sickened and tired of this war. On 17th of April 1975, the communist rebels won the war and took over Phnom Penh city. That's when the nightmare of the genocide killing field started. I was 17 at the time. In the early morning, I heard about loud beating at our front door. It was horrified. I found two Khmer rebels with black uniform, black cap, with red scarf around their neck. Both carried guns, and they pointed at me with the unfriendly faces. They shouted, "Don't lock the door or windows, you will return back in 2 days." We were told that Americans were going to drop the bombs in the city. We must leave home immediately. You would be shocked if you refused to leave. I was frightened. I couldn't do anything except nodding my head and say yes. We were forced out of our home at gunpoint, along with my family and many Phnom Penh residents. They lied to us from the start. We had no idea where to go, but to follow the orders. On the way out of the city, I witnessed mass evacuation, families torn apart, some losing their relatives, perhaps never be seen again. The elderly, monks, and young children who were crying, some without their parents, fully pregnant women, and some women with baby in their arms. We walked on the street packed with people. They were going in the different direction. It was difficult to describe the scene. We couldn't imagine what we saw. We were stumbling around over the dead bodies that lay from the night before. Some dead bodies were in army uniform and civilians. Many patients and casualties were out of hospital with drip attached to their arms. Some were on wheelchairs, some on the back of bicycles, and which their family dragged along in the crowd. Some were poorly with bandages on their heads and arms. In just one day, the whole city had changed into almost a ghost town, smelling of blood, thick smoke from a burning house, blended in with gunpowder in the air. A day and weeks went by without any news. No radio, no doctor or anyone to help us except the Khmer Rouge guerrillas with hatred on their faces staring at us. For nearly 3 months, we camped under the trees, slept on the ground, in the fields, in empty temple buildings, anywhere that we could escape from the heat and the rain. First, my father was taken away along with 3 uncles and 2 teenage cousins. We were told that we will see them again after 3 months. I never saw them again. We were forced to live in the countryside, working in the farms, cornfields, picking tobacco leaves for nearly 3 months before we were evacuated to a remote area in the jungle, far away from any humans except wild animals. We were left there to die. During the time in the jungle, we were forced into hard labor by Communist Pol Pot, army and their groups. We left with 6 members, my mother with a 3-year-old daughter and 2 young sons aged 5 and 6, and my elderly grandmother. Myself, my mother and brothers were forced to work in the rice paddy, potato farms, everywhere when they needed us. This involved many long hours in terrible conditions under hot sun and cold rain. We never knew what day it was in the week, no break, no weekend or any day off. If we were ill or unable to work, our rice allowance would be cut. For each of us, we were given 1 tablespoon of rice grain and a spoon of grain salt if we're lucky, for a day to live on. Even though Cambodia is rich in agriculture, there was no food supply. We had to find any edible plants or leaf to mix with our rice allowance. We were starving, suffered with malaria, diarrhea, and other diseases. There weren't any available medicine, hospital, or any doctor to help. We had to find any alternative herbal medicines that could be used to cure ourselves. My 70-year-old grandmother and 5-year-old brother died in the jungle. Both were too ill and starved to death. Any educated person, teachers, students, doctors, bankers, civil servants, entertainers, soldiers were executed or faced prison. We share accommodation in a makeshift bamboo hut for 2 meters squares in the jungle. One by one, many of my cousins, relatives died with many other people in the jungle. My 6-year-old brother was tortured and punished. He was forcibly tied up and put to stand on an ant hill. His crime was picking up pumpkin flowers to eat from the field. He was starving. It was a living hell, and many times we wished to be dead rather than alive. I have witnessed Phnom Penh emptied out of home contents and taken away in many convoys to Vietnam. Being subject to the lies and deceit of Pol Pot regime that lead to so many deaths. The Pol Pot army was made up of 12 to 13 years old carrying machine gun, AK-47. I saw evacuees forced into selection hard labor camps where they were questioned, and if they found against the Pol Pot idea, will be executed. There was a massive suffering, starvation, and any valuable like gold, diamonds, and watches exchanged for food, banknotes, and cash had no value. I had been tortured and punished because I couldn't complete Pol Pot labor target. I was given a daily target digging soil to build a dike to create an enormous water reservoir. They measured 1 meter width by 2 meter length and 1 meter deep for me to dig. Then I had to carry the soil in 2 baskets onto my shoulder to fill up the top of the dike. The ground was solid like a rock. Proper tool. We don't have any proper tools to use. Both my hands were sore and blistered. One bad day, I was kicked and shouted at. I had no choice but to carry on working until I finished the target. We had no help from the outside world. We felt hopeless, frightened, and wishing to die sooner. The world seemed to forget about us. We were like living in a prison without walls. We heard that the Khmer Rouge called this period Year Zero. It meant everything started from zero. We share our life in the jungle with wild animals. We use the moon and stars as our lights and the sun for the time. I am still here today because I didn't give up my hope. My hope was to return back home, continue my education, and meet my father again, even we knew that was impossible. We had dreams every night about food. It was mentally and physically exhausting. It was hard to describe how difficult and painful it was at the time. I couldn't cry. I suffered enough, but I always had my hope. On 7 January 1979, we were liberated by the Vietnamese troops from the living hell. Yet again, I was punished, tortured, and put in Vietnamese prison because I was accused of being a Pol Pot soldier. I still have scars on my both wrists. We had nothing left. Our home, our possessions, our relatives, and the country was under communist Vietnamese regime. Still no freedom. We escaped from the refugee to the refugee camp near the Thai border in the hope to find freedom. On the 4th of August 1987, we were very fortunate to start a new life in England. My life experience in the genocide has made me become a stronger person and appreciate life more. The brutality was created by cruel people and their groups. They were monsters, worse than wild animals. They were full of hate. Any genocide and atrocity should never be forgotten. Some people are afraid to speak out, to stand for justice, to stand against hatred, discrimination, and racism. This caused the atrocity in Cambodia. We had no chance to stand against power-crazy leaders. We were kept quiet, silent in the dark, as it seemed like the outside world had forgotten us. We still have these atrocities continuing in some part of the world. We need to speak out and be the light in the darkness so this is never repeated. Many innocent people lost their life through execution, never had a chance to speak or had justice done. People need to know and learn from the past. I am hoping to carry on living without regret, anger, and disappointment, even though I lost my dreams to become a doctor, my education. Our family properties has been taken away by other people. The memory is in killing fields still stay clear in my head, in my mind. I am very pleased to share my life story to the world. I have written a book, as Jeremy mentioned in the beginning, about called The Killing Field of Cambodia. It's my life story, and from the day I remembered when I was 6 years old. It's called A Living Hell, and had been published in November last year and available from Amazon. So if anyone interested to know more about it, please check on Amazon. Thank you for listening.
Sokpa, thank you so much for sharing your story and also the courage in telling it, because undoubtedly it brings back painful memories. So thank you for that. I'm going to hand you back to Jill and her children. And I say her children, they're obviously not all her children, but they are her children musically and spiritually, and they have written a few words for today.
Being a light in the darkness.
Each year at Hanukkah, Jews worldwide light their Hanukkah candles or lamps in celebration of the miracle of the oil that lasted for 8 days when there was only enough for one. This allowed the menorah in the ancient temple to light up the darkness until more olive oil could be purified to continue the perpetual lighting of the holy temple.
Hanukkah takes place towards the end of the year, which tends to be the darker months here and in many places. Physically, the light from the Hanukkah candles brightens our homes and our lives with a healing and joyous light. Metaphorically, the light from the Hanukkah candles celebrates the freedom of choice to follow your religion and to live your life unafraid of bullying, discrimination, and prejudice.
During the Holocaust and other genocides since then, the right to choose has been taken away, even the right to live at all. During these dark times, finding a chink of light is not only rare, but also amazing. It is people who provide a light in the darkness by choosing the difficult path of giving acts of kindness and bravery that could endanger their own lives and the lives of their loved ones. In Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Israel, there is a display of pictures of such selfless, wonderful people.
Examples of these acts of kindness were a light in the darkness during the Holocaust years, where families of children were hidden from the Nazis and survived when they would most certainly would have perished without that help.
On the Greek island of Zakynthos and the main town of Volos, Christian neighbours mounted resistance under the leadership of the bishop and the mayor. They hid the entire Jewish population up in the mountains, to the immense irritation and anger of the Nazi leaders in that area.
These were the only areas where the Jewish population survived in Greece, due to the bravery of the local communities, and were indeed very bright lights in the darkness.
In 1943, in the concentration camp Bergen-Belsen, on the first night of Hanukkah, Rabbi Israel Shapiro lit a makeshift Hanukkah made of raw potato and recited the Hanukkah blessings for the group. In the dim light from the makeshift candle wicks made from clothing threads, comforted them in their hour of need, and despite the gravity of their situation, lifted a little of the darkness from their lives and helped them to feel less isolated.
Lyrics of one of our favourite Hanukkah songs are appropriate to the theme of today's Holocaust Memorial service, as well as being touching. Of course, being a Hanukkah song, it's all about light, more importantly, not letting the light go out.
In this case, referring to the Hanukkah story of fighting for freedom to be Jewish, a familiar theme unfortunately only too common in the world, where hatred has led to a lack of rights, and even worse, genocide. People of other creeds and nationalities have experienced and are still experiencing similar periods of darkness. As it seems, the lessons of the Holocaust have never been learned.
We would like to share these lyrics with you.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children. Give thanks that their light didn't die.
Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied.
Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand.
Light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand.
Don't let the light go out.
It's lasted for so many years.
Don't let the light go out.
Let it shine through our laugh and our tears.
Don't let the light go out.
It's lasted for so many years.
Don't let the light go out.
Let it shine through our love and our tears.
The world is often a dark place, and for most of us, the past 10 months have been a difficult time, a time that has been described as darkness with the COVID pandemic. Many people have experienced hardships, such as losing a loved one, losing their livelihood or homes, loneliness, and mental health issues.
It is again acts of kindness and bravery that have been a light in the darkness, such as all the frontline workers who have kept the country going throughout the year, food banks sewing PPE for the front line, volunteering to contact lonely, vulnerable people for a chat and offering to go shopping for them.
Being a light in the darkness is as important today as it always has been. Looking after our families, friends, neighbours, bringing together communities irrespective of ethnic background.
Genocide happens because of man's inhumanity to man, with its roots in prejudice and hatred. Communities coming together to help each other, offering a beacon of light and hope in the darkness, can help to prevent the kind of uncaring and hateful behaviour that can lead to genocide.
Thank you so much, children. Holocaust Memorial Day here in Kingston really would just simply not be the same without you. And thank you to Jill Varon as well for organising it for us. Thank you. We are now going to have a musical gift. John Irving is going to play a piece of music for us. And we will be lighting a candle here, and towards the end of his piece, we will be holding it up for you. And if at home, by any chance, you have a candle handy and you feel so moved, you are more than welcome to join us. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Annette. I'm going to play a prelude by Bach in F-sharp minor. It's from his famous collection known as the 48 Preludes and Fugues. Bach's music seems to have that quality that transcends time, space, and culture, and it seems so appropriate for an occasion such as this.
It's my privilege to thank you all for taking part in this event today. To thank those in the background, and especially Rebecca and Craig, who against all the challenges of technology have put the event online, but also Francis Arakasami, Raju Padilla, who've worked in the background. To thank my co-chair, Annette, who has worked so hard to bring the links together and enable us to be here. I thank our Mayor, Margaret Thompson. The children today put into words so succinctly that need for each of us to light a candle in the darkness. And I thank them for their words and bringing us together. I thank John Irving for his playing. All those who have taken part, but particularly today, I know I was deeply touched by Sokdin's words, his sharing of what genocide means. Today, may each of us go out from here with his words ringing in our ears, so that we may be a light in the darkness and speak up wherever we see injustice. Thank you all for being part of today's event.
Thank you.